You're going to shoot from the hip.
Yeah, man. That's most how we do it.
Okay. Oh, welcome to this historic moment in the history of our school,
Yeah.
where we are launching our podcast called From Root to Fruit. You are our first esteemed guest, our latest employee.
The first fruit.
Yes, the first fruit. And yeah, thank you for joining us. And we celebrate what God is doing in our community and in the lives of everyone that work here. So let's get straight into it. You know, grateful that you are here, and I'm excited for our listeners to hear your story. And let's kick off with the interesting stuff. How did God lead you to the vine, and what convinced you that this is the right place where you want to serve with the skills He has given you?
Sure. God led me to the vine. More than anything, I think through my wife. She sort of led, when it came to choosing schools for the kids, she really led the charge there. And we chose the vine because I went to John Wycliffe, which is the previous version of the vine. So a very similar Christian, very small independent school. So in that regard, it was familiar to me. But also she went to the school that was in this building before the vine. So it kind of felt like a school that it somehow had combined her experience of primary school and my experience. So in that regard, it felt just very unique and special to us from the beginning. And then of course it was the geographic location. But I would say that was really where it started. And at that point, so Marley, my daughter, who is in grade 2 now, started here in grade R. So she's been here 2 or 3. So I think we, as a family, we're here now. This is our 3rd year. The end of this year will be the end of our 3rd year here. And certainly, I think definitely when in the first year she was here, there was no consideration of one day, really. There was no thought about one day I'll be working at the school. I was doing something else. And even at that point, I wasn't even thinking about not doing it. We were really just... Marley was finishing at creche and needed a place to go, and we chose this place, and that's all we thought about. But then, I think in getting to know the school and getting coming to the events, there really was a sense of this is. I don't think we've ever really had any doubt about this being the place for us. I think we have considered other options just from a due diligence point of view, but the school has always felt like the right place for us and for our family. And so when I got to the point where I was starting to think about stepping away from the contracting business that I was running to moving to something else, that would have been in January of 2024. Even then, my first thought was not, work at the Vine School. I looked at a number of different things, but it did eventually come up that actually if I had the opportunity to work here, I would. If only because my children are here and I, like being close to my kids. But just also, it always felt very familiar and safe. And I think one of the reasons, again, why we chose to send our kids here is because we really do believe in what the school does. We like, we like the small classes. We like that our kids get attention. We like that. I think that the Vine feels different, and it feels special, and it really feels in line with what we really truly believe. And I think particularly in the primary school ages, we wanted to lay that foundation. Whatever happens next, we obviously haven't figured out high school yet. I mean, in terms of our family, we're not, it's still off in the future. But in terms of where our kids are at right now in their own development, we wouldn't want them to be anywhere else. And I think I really have actually fallen in love with the school. I think it's interesting how your journey develops, because I never imagined myself in education, but actually, as I've learned about myself, I was not a fantastic school student because I didn't like being in the classroom. But as I got older, and I started to discover that I do actually enjoy learning as long as it's on my own terms. And so that's one of the things that I think I am passionate about, is how can we structure an educational environment for kids where the kids are really engaged and not overwhelmed, not overstimulated, but just at that sweet spot of just the right amount of engagement in their educational experience. And I think the Vine is the place for that.
So your journey to sit in the business manager seat, would you share a bit about what that's been like for you, and just what's it been, 3 months? No, 2 months?
So yeah, this is month 3 at the end of November. Yeah, I started 1 September, so at the end of September, at the end of November, it'll be the end of 3 months. Yeah.
So maybe just share with the listeners about leading up to the processes you went through, coming for interviews, etc. And now looking back at that time versus now, what have you learned? What have you appreciated? What has been your biggest blessing over the past few months? So sorry, maybe I'm making this a complex question. First, let's talk about the journey to where you are now, and then we get to what's it been like in these last 2-3 months.
So I'd say the journey specifically to business manager started when I was asked to consider joining the board. So I attended an informal board meeting and a more formal board meeting in Jan-Feb. And part of that process, you look at all of the documents and policies, and you really give it a hard think. I think that was kind of perhaps where the seed of the idea was born, where I realized that I actually was really passionate about the school and really did want to be involved in helping the school become everything that it could be. But I was going to need to be in a more hands-on position than simply in a board meeting once every 2 months. And again, because I was already processing the idea of leaving what I was doing to do something else, it really just felt like, actually, I think being the next business manager might be in fact, it didn't even occur to me initially. It was my wife who said to me, and again, this is why a wife is so important. It was my wife who initially said, when she had heard before I was that they would be looking for a new business manager, and she said, why don't you apply for that position? And I remember when she said it, I thought, why on earth would I do that? But literally, just in having the conversations first with the board and then with yourself through the PVA, it just became more and more clear to me that it felt like the right next step. And again, it had a lot to do with what God had revealed to me about who I am and what I'm passionate about and what my strengths are, both in terms of like my own wiring, in terms of my personality, but also my experiences in life. Those two things came together, in a very special way, which I think aligns very well with what is needed specifically in the business manager role at this point in time. And yes, it was a bumpy road. I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but it was a bumpy road. There was a lot of waiting. There was some, initially I think there was a first round, and it was like, no, he's chosen someone, it's not you, and I had to process the heartbreak and disappointment of that. But I do believe that, it's important that, if you're applying for a position, you trust the people who are making the decision to make the right decision for the organization. And if it's not you, as much as that may be disappointing, you have to accept that decision. Like you have to trust that the people who are making the decision know what they're doing. But eventually, it circled back, and actually the position was still available. And after many conversations, here we are. Yeah.
Sure. So if you could sum up you've had the experience for a number of years as a parent, coming from that kind of background in your own education. Sum up your experience as in working here. What insights have you gained? Obviously, you have a lot more insight than parents or other people have. But just what's your experience been like since joining the school as a staff member, and what's been the biggest blessing over this time?
So the one thing that has been very interesting for me is the difference between dad brain and business manager brain. These are, in fact, two very different brains. I don't know, I'm hoping other dads relate, but as a dad, there are little details that you just assume your wife will make you aware of when you need to be aware of them. But then obviously as the business manager, every detail, then like it's almost the opposite extreme. Every single detail matters. So I think because of how long the application and interview process took, and again, because of how long we'd already been at the school, there was a lot of time for me to familiarize myself with what is the school, how do things work, who's who in the zoo. So, and that almost, it really felt like a blessing or an advantage to be able to have time to sort of slowly acclimatize yourself with what is the culture at the school. But then, of course, finding yourself in the seat of business manager, like there's a very steep operational learning curve, lots of acronyms to learn, lots of people in other organizations that you need to meet, suppliers that you work with regularly. So the practical side of it has been a very steep learning curve. But I think a lot of the story of Joseph, well, even before I was business manager, just that story of God giving you a vision for yourself, for your life, that you really don't understand and in fact could even misinterpret at one point in time. And then you go on a very long journey with challenges and hardships and very important lessons. And then many years later you go, oh, I get it now. It now all makes sense. Because the position of this, the position that I find myself in now has very much been that it doesn't feel like I went to school and then studied and got a qualification in the right area and now I'm finally a business manager, which is something that I've been working towards. It wasn't that sort of traditional trajectory. It really was much more experiential and like feeling God leading you in a direction that you don't understand until you get there and you go, all of the things that I've learned, my own personal inclinations are just suddenly making sense in this position. And it is, and again, I suppose it is still very early. It's only month 3, so technically it still very much is the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, I can testify to that one.
But I am hopeful. In the honeymoon phase, I'm very much feeling like I married the right person. Whatever may happen, 5-10 years on the line, who knows? But just, to come to work every day with a deep sense of I am in exactly the right place is an amazing feeling, because, when things happen that are frustrating or perhaps scary or unsettling, to have that underlying feeling of I am exactly where I'm supposed to be is something that I think not everyone gets to experience. And that's something that I feel very aware of. But again, I've been through a lot. So it does almost feel like, sure, it was all worth it. And now here I am,
Sure. Yeah. It's encouraging to hear that, once you just remain steadfast in whatever it is that God leads you, eventually it will all make sense. We can always say that in hindsight.
Yeah, it's much easier to say in hindsight.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm quite excited about, which you've been working on since I think it was a few weeks in, you realized, okay, this is what I need to spend time on, this is what we need going forward to help the school flourish and grow, which is your strategic development and fundraising strategy, if I can call it that. So maybe if you can, it's a very long process it took to where it is now and how it's developed and the people you've spoken to, but to maybe the parents who might be listening, whoever else is out there listening, what excites you about what you've put together through the conversations with myself, staff, various people? If you can briefly summarize very quickly, what is the 3 things that we're going to be focusing on over the next few years, and what is it exactly that excites you about the next 3 years, for example, based on what you've put together and what you see the way forward looks like for us?
In the interest of keeping it brief and simple, I'd narrow it down to one thing actually, and that's community. Mm-hmm. I think the very nature of what the Vine is extremely specific. And the only way that we're going to succeed and move forward is to really understand what is the community that we serve and how can we best serve them. What does our community want and how do we give it to them? There are a number of practical ideas around that. The one is, as you know already, on a weekly basis, I try to have a one-on-one meeting with either a parent or a parent couple. I think, again, given the nature of how Ambleside education works, it's extremely relational. And so the business development or marketing strategy has to reflect that value of relationalness. But again, we are also a very small community. So it's not like, you would try to meet in person with 100,000 people. It is a much smaller market. And because of that, so because of this imperative for relationality in a relatively small community, there's an imperative to actually sit down, talk to people, look them in the eye, and say to them, why are you here? What do you feel like it is working or not working? What could we do better? That's probably the tip of the spear in just understanding in person who is our community and what is the best way that we can serve them. And then the other important one for me is social media, which is a tricky one because there is, in terms of my experience at this point, there is a kind of a very, almost an anti-social media message, within the Charlotte Mason framework. But for me, it's a question of, again, understanding the tool and understanding how we can use it best. It's a bit like fire. You can't just say fire is dangerous and then never use it. You have to understand how to use the tool responsibly. And I think the thing about social media is that the cost is extremely low, but it puts us in a position where the very specific message that we want to share can go as far as it can possibly go. And for us, that's very important. I think our target market is not specifically in our geographic region. So we need a tool that can reach them wherever they are, including if they aren't on this continent. Because some of our, this continent or this country, because many of our students come from outside the country, either from other countries, other continents or other countries, but certainly oftentimes outside of the general Lansdowne area. There are a few who are. So I would say, if anything, it's really those two things at the moment, is having specific and consistent one-on-one interactions with parents to get a sense of what they enjoy and what's working and what's not. And then through social media, sharing what it means to be at the Vine School every day, because there is some misconception around that. And when you try and explain to people, it's easy for them to misunderstand. Whereas if you just take a video and show them, or have a conversation and record it, you can just say, this is what we're talking about. And it does just make it much easier to understand, okay, this is what you guys do. Do I want that or not?
Yeah, that's we're excited. I think we've already started some work on the vision and going forward, but I think we'll gain some good traction next year and going forward. So if you think about this strategy that you've put together, what would you say are some of the ways that the whole community, so the parents, the staff, and everyone involved in the school, it might even be grandparents, what could they do to help us build this vision and to grow and to make the school flourish? What do you see the various roles that the stakeholders at the school could play in supporting where we're going?
Sure. I think the focus for thus far has really much been about what are we going to do, and how are we going to lead, and what opportunities can we create, and what that's looked like is just how do we create opportunities for engagement. So, for example, our market day is a fantastic opportunity for engagement, but again, it's up to us to market that correctly so that people know when it's happening, and for us to structure it in a way that people want to come and attend and spend money and have a good time. So I don't actually know that. I haven't really been thinking about it in terms of what must other people do so much as what must we do. But again, social media, for example, is another fantastic engagement platform. But again, it's up to us to first of all be consistent, to post consistently, and ensure that the message that is being communicated is consistent. And then we just hope, the hope is that people will respond. But again, it's almost assumed that will happen. Again, if we are consistent, if you are consistent enough, the theory goes that eventually you'll have the breakthrough. You just can't sit around twiddling your thumbs waiting for it to happen. So I would say, the short answer in a single word, in fact, is engage. engage with us. If perhaps, if you have a question, if you're wondering about something, if maybe you've asked something before and you didn't get an answer that you liked, or you got no answer, it is important that you know that as of now, please do engage with us. We are not interested only in the responses that you think we want. We want to know what our community is thinking, so that again we can serve them in the most effective ways possible.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, because when you think in a perfect world, as a school, we'd like to engage and just hear all the fairy tale stories,
of course,
but that's not reality.
Who doesn't want that? Yeah.
Engage, whether it means in a difficult conversation. That's also what we're saying, is that what the parents and the community can do for now is just engage. Don't just look at us doing all the stuff, but for now, the way we see us grow and be all God has called us to be as a community is just engage, whether it's a good conversation or a hard conversation, because that's how we will all grow. So yeah, just heading to land the plane in our conversation today. So the two final questions. If you'd imagine the school 5 to 10 years from now, what do you hope it looks like spiritually, financially, relationally?
Sure. Let's go with 5 years, because 5 years is sooner than 10 years. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. I would like it to not be more than 5 years, but I do see us. I see us thriving. I see us reaching a place where, so our baseline for class capacity is 12 students enrolled. I see us doing that. We've had conversations around what is there's maximum capacity, but what is ideal capacity in terms of the culture that is created based on bodies on the property. And I think like one of the things that I've seen is I had this before I was in the position, I saw this building with these lawns and trees and pathways, and now I'm at the Vine, and we go for walks around the school. And in my mind, in the vision, I imagined it as like a golf course. And of course, the Vine is not a golf course. But for me, that's where I see us going. That's where I would like to get to. I think it's only a question of, God gives us a vision, but he won't email you a schedule to go with it. He won't tell you on Tuesday at 3 o'clock this is going to happen. He'll just say to you, go in that direction or follow that path. And, the path is very seldom straight. You have to, be okay with going around the corners. But the Bible said God's word is a light unto my feet. It's enough light to see the next step. And I think he calls us to take those steps. And if the path does bend, just have faith and go with the bends. But I see our dreams coming true if we just, I believe that God shows us things, and I think that there definitely is a place for the Vine School. I don't think that what we're doing is like swimming upstream or anything. I think it's just a question of getting our strategic approach right, coming to an understanding of who it is that wants what we have, and connecting with those people. But I think, if we just follow that, every little thing is going to be all right.
The famous words of Uncle Bob. Just perhaps non-school related, or just from a personal point of view, to anyone who's listening, what would you give as a piece of encouragement or hope or life advice for those out there that might be listening, a word of encouragement as they might be dealing with whatever in their life at the moment? Just a quick word of encouragement and hope to whoever might need it, whoever's listening.
Sure. Hang in there. I mean, that's really the best way to put it. You know, yeah, life is all about the seasons: summer, winter, autumn, and spring. Um, and it's important that we have the fortitude to endure through all of the seasons, and to remember. I think it's a very important trait or skill set to be able to be able to find things to be grateful for, even when it feels like the world is falling apart. I think gratitude is perhaps the best indicator of a person's ability to be happy. And for me, you know, some of the people who have left me feeling the most blessed are people who I would have thought, you know, they don't have the options or opportunities or resources that I have access to, and yet they have a smile on their face that just cannot be shaken. And I always find that so interesting, is that, you know, how are you able to be so joyful even when you don't have things that I take for granted, you know, and I'm upset about some other thing that I don't have, but, you know, you're just happy with what you have. So I guess that's it, is that for me, you know, in my personal opinion, is that gratitude is the best indicator of your ability to be happy. So just look for the things to be grateful for, count your blessings, name them one by one, and take one step at a time.
Well, thank you, sir. It's been good to chat. Yeah, I mean, we look forward to see what God does through this conversations we'll have with different people from our community, parents, maybe grandparents. We'll have a student on this chair soon, hopefully, some of our admin staff, our teachers, and really the idea is just for people out there from our own community, the wider community, whoever listens, is to get an idea of who the people are that work at our school, where they come from, what are their stories, and we'll give them a taste of what makes us unique. I mean, you've mentioned earlier, it's a very, you know, unique market that we cater for, and so just to give people an idea of, this is really a snippet of what we are and what we do, and so whoever is interested can just give us a call. Absolutely. If they would like to know more. But really our heart is just to share everyone's journey, because I think that's what inspire people, give people hope and encourage them that maybe a particular way of doing school and being school doesn't work for everyone, and that there are alternatives out there, and there's no we do it better than the rest of the world, or this one is the best, there's a place for everyone under the sun, and some people flourish in certain environments. So we look forward to have some more conversations with the rest of the team. But you are our first and honored and esteemed guest, so thank you.
Thank you, happy to be here. I feel very blessed. Thank you.